how you doing? Daniel Ruiz Tizon is available for Monday the 8th of June 2020 with me, Daniel Ruiz Tizon, episode 240 live on Ramble FM, 10 p.m. UK time. I got the start time right tonight, really pleased about that. Got the earphones in as well, which can be a bit disorientating. It's as if I've got super hearing. I can hear all the traffic amplified in the street. I've already got that super sense of smell, which the last of the 5 nose jobs back in 2007 left me with. I think they say that one of the symptoms of COVID-19, am I right, you lose your sense of smell. I would really be panicking if I lost my sense of smell, given how strong my sense of smell is. It's never let me down in the cafe when something's going on behind those swing saloon doors, or rather when something was going on behind those swing saloon doors. Let's see if that place comes back. Live on Ramble FM, 10 p.m. UK time. Hope you're all well, keeping on doing what you need to be doing to keep yourself going. It's been a cold day in London, unusually cold for June. I guess we're saying this kind of thing every year now. Our weather patterns have certainly changed here. I've had 6 tops on for most of the day. I've had 2 coffees in the last 30 minutes prior to the show. So I'm actually like one of those people who've got hypothermia and suddenly need to strip off. I'm down to 3 tops now. I've got the long johns on though in June. Incredible. This morning I was so cold in bed. I'd had a poor night's sleep again. And I blasted myself for the last sort of 45 minutes in bed, blasted myself with the electric blanket, which means that, bearing in mind, that's got to be paid for. Tonight I'm working with just the one desk lamp, but I should be okay. If you're wondering about the show's numbering, if you're wondering where episode 239 is, it has been pointed out by a couple of listeners, roughly 7% of the known existing audience there or thereabouts. It has been pointed out that the show's cataloguing stroke indexing is a little curious, if not off. Since starting this live Monday night show and also not being great with numbers, for me the simplest thing to do is the Monday night show is a standalone episode. Patron supporters will get the show by Monday night if they've missed this live airing. Everyone else will get it on the Tuesday morning now rather than Thursday morning. And then on Thursdays, patrons get the weekly Patron episode on a Thursday, which now that I've finally discovered how to record directly onto Audacity, are turning into longer than the average half hours they have been for most of the last 7 or 8 months. Having said that, I did forget to plug in the Zoom H1 mic for last week's Patron show. There's an early issue with the throat there. I've got a bottle of water to my left, but I've made the mistake of getting some sparkling water, so I don't think that's going to be too helpful for me live on air if I need to take a swig of that. So after forgetting, well, I didn't actually realise that I'd forgotten to plug the Zoom H1 into the laptop. And the recording actually went okay. I think it's the first time I've actually ever recorded using the laptop mic. Not ideal, but I did get away with it. But I shouldn't really. I mean, it shouldn't be happening. But I'm increasingly scatty. So basically, odd episode numbers on the Mondays, evens on the Thursdays. There was also a bonus episode free to everyone that went out on Saturday night on the Patreon page, just for the simple reason I think that I needed to break up another dull weekend. And it might have done me good to release the relentless internal monologue of the weekend as a bonus episode. The weekends pre-lockdown were bad as it is. I'm not going to dress them up. They have been bad for a long time, but the lockdown era weekends have made them even harder. But as covered on the bonus episode, the last couple of weekends I've been tweaking my routine so as to avoid the cat naps. The cat naps are the big problem for me, which happen because I'm always up early and I'm not sleeping enough. But the cat naps lead to the vivid dreams, which, they can kill my mood for the weekend. That strategy was successful on Saturday. Saturday just gone. I split the housework into two, did the hard floors, sweeping and wiping just after getting back from buying the neighbour's paper. Then a couple of hours later, I did the hoovering, left-handed, just to vary things. I'm just looking at my notes here. My handwriting, I'm making a real effort with my handwriting, but it's still terrible. Every night, I always make a list on a post-it note of what I need to do the following morning. So I'm prepared every day. So I'm very well organized. But even now that I'm making a real effort to improve my handwriting, there have been 3 or 4 bullet points on today's post-it note that in what has been a 14-hour day so far, I've still not managed to decipher. It's really strange. I'm going to make a renewed effort tonight to get my hand writing better. Back to the catnaps. They were less successful yesterday. I had, I think it was at least 2 catnaps. One in the morning, one late afternoon. I felt so groggy, especially after the afternoon one. The morning catnap produced, thankfully it wasn't really a depressing dream for me, though it might depress one of my listeners. I dreamt of King of the Shataf, Minty Mat, and his family. In his dream incarnation, he had 6 kids, and we all hooked up. Minty Mat and his family, his big dream family, were in South London, and we went to a McDonald's, the McDonald's in Camberwell. Now, I'm never in a McDonald's, unlike in the late 80s when I was never out of them, but I swear that I woke up from this catnap with my mouth able to taste those very salted fries. I could actually taste them. I'm glad I woke up before it came to Minty Mat and I sorting out the money in this McDonald's, because I was thinking, okay, it's him, his wife, it's the 6 kids. Obviously, he's going to pay for the 6 kids. He's going to pay for the wife, or maybe the wife's going to pay for all of them. I don't know. But at what point do I pay, or do I offer to pay, or is he treating me? So I'm glad I woke up in time. Maybe he might have just said, don't worry, David, it's on me. After all, it would be just one more mouth to feed. And you know, that's Shataf. We're not talking a B-day here. You've got to be on good money to run the Shataf. So, yeah, I was relieved before we got to that potentially awkward dream moment. And once the dream had ended and I could taste the fries in my mouth, I sat up in bed. I bit down hard on the mouth guard. That was actually another part of my dream towards the end. I'd actually met Minty Mat and his big family, his big dream family. I'd met them. I was wearing the mouth guard. I never eat with a mouth guard. And I was trying to get a napkin in McDonald's in which I could put the mouth guard in while I was eating, and without the Minties seeing me getting rid momentarily of the mouth guard. So I don't know what this, if anything, this new development, me now dreaming of lunching with listeners and their families, I don't know what that signifies. I don't know where it's come from, maybe because Minty Mat and I have some regular interactions on social media. Possibly that. He's got a very distinctive avatar as well. He's had the same avatar, I think, for the 10, 11 years we've been following each other on social media, which equates, it's the equivalent of a classic football kit. You don't get the classic football kits anymore because teams don't wear those kits for long enough. Minty Mat has had the same avatar for 10, 11 years. That is the equivalent of a classic football kit of the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. That doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen anymore on Twitter. So that really does mark him out as very distinctive. But I am thinking, have I finally run out of friends to dream of? And the people in my head, the people behind my dream mind, those little numbskulls, you know, like in the old Beezer comic, maybe they've determined, look at the state of this guy, look at his Braveheart mullet, let's give him a break from dreaming about dead people. Maybe we can have him dreaming about lunching with some of his listeners. The numbskulls might have sat down to this meeting via Zoom. The pandemic would possibly have affected them too. So they're having this meeting via Zoom, poor audio quality. And during this meeting, it would have been agreed that the King of the Chattaf and his super large family would join me for lunch in Camberwell in southeast London. It is 22 minutes past 10 UK time. If you're on Twitter, if you're on the Twitter, say hello. Facebook page isn't working properly yet. No point saying hello on there. I'm having problems this evening scheduling stuff on there. I'm having to do it on my mobile. It's very fiddly. Ended up scheduling stuff on the wrong day. Had to go in, try and delete it. Not sure if I've been able to. But you can follow this show at least on Facebook. Facebook.com/DRT is available. Twitter and Instagram, both at 1607 West Egg. If you want to email the show, it's DRT available at westegg1607.co.uk. And I've written my first piece for Medium. And that's gone out today, medium.com/@DRT available. I'm sure I'm about 20 years too old to be writing for them. I'm going to be like Larry Clark, hanging around with children when he was making the film Kids. I'm hoping that my audience, I think you're an old audience. I think you might get that reference if you're into films. So that first piece for Medium, that's talking about the pull of live radio for me, despite making, so many hundreds of podcasts over the last 10, 11 years, why I'm doing this live radio, why I'm doing this show via Ramble FM on a Monday night, why it's important to me. And, I do feel a bit of excitement just before I go on air. I haven't had to get a bus to the old studios. That was certainly quite nerve-wracking being in a proper studio. But this is getting me close. I'm aware that this is something very similar. It's almost like, you've had some dream date in your younger days. You met each other at outside this particular shop, say on a station concourse. And, years later, you might be trying to relive that, possibly on another date with a completely different person. Or possibly just walking past there on your own, and you take a look and it's not a whatever it is, WH Smith or a Tire Rack or an R Price anymore. It's something else. A Wasabi. I think that's a place. I'm sure that is I'm sure I've been in a Wasabi years ago. But I think it's a bit like that. I think that's what I'm trying to recapture. I'm trying to make this show a bit more exciting at my end. If I can get listeners to engage with the live experience, of course, that would be brilliant. That's not going to be happening very quickly, but, as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was probably built in a period of a few years, and I've certainly been doing this kind of stuff longer than a few years. I'm just trying to refresh the Twitter page here, having terrible mouse problems. Normally I'm glad to start the week, but today, and I think it has been down to having to replace the wireless mouse. I did an update last week, or I try to stay on top of these Windows updates, and I started to notice, I use Firefox as my default browser, and the last 2 or 3 weeks that's been playing up a bit, but the wireless mouse has been fine. I've got 2 mice, both the same make and model. They've both stopped working properly at the same time. Now, I noticed around the middle of last week that I was having problems. Just now I was trying to click on the Twitter screen. I have to click really hard. I keep resetting the mouse settings to no avail. Microsoft support on Twitter, to be fair, were very, very good. We were exchanging DMs. They ran me through the steps I needed to take, many of which I'd already taken multiple times, but I had to, I first tried reinstalling the drivers. That did nothing. So then I had to do system restore, which I'm getting better at this stuff, but I don't want to be able to. Well, it's not that I don't want to be able to do this stuff. I don't want to do this stuff. I find things like this dull. I find them a bit stressful. I'm a creative guy. I'm in a situation where I've only got one machine. It's one thing trying to find out how a fridge works on YouTube. I don't want to be messing around with a laptop that contains all of my work, doing system restores. And I backed all my work up onto a Seagate beforehand, just in case. Just on the fridge, actually, I think I mentioned last week that the fridge my stuff. I mean, the bottle I've got to my left is sparkling water. It's actually a very bulbous bottle because it had frozen last week in the freezer. Sorry, in the fridge, not the freezer, because the settings weren't right. I was getting confused. I was turning the dial the wrong way. And this, again, I'm pretty sure it relates to anything to do with numbers. I do get confused. So I was seeing a lot of food go to waste. I've now sorted out the fridge. And my theory was right, basically. It was down to a lack of common sense. But anyway, it's one thing dealing with a fridge. I don't really want those kind of issues with a laptop. Something as simple as a wireless mouse. You know, one wireless mouse can go wrong. Two at the same time, I don't think so. And I did this system restore, and it's not really made much of a difference. There are periods in the day when the mouse seems to be working better. And then there are periods in the day where I'm having to click constantly and nothing's happening. And, you know, for example, I'm recording directly onto Audacity now, as well as a backup in case there are problems with the Ramble streaming, so I don't lose the show. And sometimes when I'm, editing for clients, I'm highlighting audio and clicking on audio or trying to cut a bit of audio, and it's not working. The mouse isn't working. So it's very frustrating. And today my day was completely derailed by searching for a wireless mouse online. And I tend not to read reviews. I've always been a bit of an impulsive buyer, particularly if something's cheap. But today I made a point of reading reviews. But that meant that basically if you read reviews on every single item, you're going to find bad reviews. And as soon as I saw a bad review, or if I saw that a wireless mouse, only had 3 out of 5 stars, I'd be thinking, well, why has it only got 3 stars, not even 3.5? And I'd read the review and I thought, okay, I'm not buying that. So it took a while, it took 4 or 5 hours. I think I had 2 separate sessions, a bit like the cleaning, really. I'm breaking everything up right now. Had 2 separate sessions and finally settled on a wireless mouse. It's a plug and play. I'm hoping that overrides the issue that I'm having with this Microsoft mouse. I did ask them if I bought another mouse that wasn't Microsoft, whether I might be able to override the issue. Understandably, they didn't get back to me on that. It's also, so as I say, it's also affecting Audacity, and I've got an update for it ready to reinstall, but I've not downloaded it before doing tonight's show in case something goes wrong with the update, or in case there are, a few new features that I need to get used to. So I thought basically I need to get something decent. So I'd read a few reviews. That meant that I didn't get any writing done. The lunchtime run today was cancelled, making me feel probably even worse, because as much as I dreaded going into the park, I know that it's probably crucial to get out there when I feel as lethargic as today. And I was disappointed with myself, really, because I think it's those days when you really don't want to do something that when you do it, you actually feel much better for it. But it just wasn't possible to do it today. It would have been possible up until the early afternoon, up until about lunchtime. After that, it just wasn't really realistic. And I'd started some stuff for a client in the morning that didn't go quite the way I wanted, and then I'd resumed the search for a wireless mouse again. Anyway, that's a sound there. This is the thing with doing a live show. You make a sound. I'd committed to a word halfway, well, not even halfway through. I'd begun the word, and I can't even remember what the word was now. I'd started the audio, so you just got a little sound there. And because this is live, this is the beauty, and I suppose this is the scary thing about doing something live, is there is a sound there that no one will be able to make any sense of. It is not a sound that will mean anything in any language around the world, but it's there. And episode 240 will have now captured that forever. So anyway, hoping that this mouse, when it arrives, resolves everything. So I've sorted out the fridge. I put the bins out today again. I think I've done it 3 or 4 weeks in a row now. They're being filled all the way right up to the top. So the back, might be feeling the back tomorrow, though I've done, quite a bit of stretching today. And the reason I'm talking about the bins is when I went out to do the bins after lunch, and I was out there just in a light jacket and just a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, and I saw, well, actually it's not as cold as I thought it was. It's not as cold as it is indoors, and that kind of whetted my appetite briefly for going out for the run. I thought, again, going back to what I was saying a few moments ago, I thought if I do this today, I can run this bowl of porridge off, and I'll have more time to write tomorrow. That can motivate me. So I think that would have been the carrot to get me around the park a couple of times, but I didn't do that. I did a normal workout this evening, but I did that yesterday as well. Today was a day I was meant to run. So at the moment, the way the week's shaping up, I'm only going to go for a run 2 days again this week, same as last week. Not good. Need to step it up. Been doing some knee exercises. There's the throat going. This sparkling water's not going to help me there. I've been doing some knee exercises. Let me start again. I've been doing them for a while, but they weren't very effective. So I started searching on YouTube again for, basically it's a bad case of runner's knee, the left knee. And I found some new exercises. The video's about 14 minutes long, but I've only tackled the first 2 exercises on there. But right now, the knee has felt the benefit in a way it hasn't from the exercises I was doing prior to that. I had one of those tension ribbons as well. That wasn't doing too much for the knee, so I hope to build up on these exercises by the end of the week. I did them again today. I've been doing them for a few days. I've been at this desk for at least 12 hours today. I had a little break for an hour reading just before setting up for the show tonight. And towards the end of the day, maybe because of the way I'm sitting, I don't know, but the knee started playing up again in a way that it hadn't during the day. So I'm not sure whether it's down to the running. Is it because I'm sitting down at this desk for so many hours every day? I don't know, but I need to do more of these exercises. Last week's run, I think this was after the Patron episode 239 went out. I was seen returning to the flat from my run by a different neighbour whose husband once told me off for being on the front lawn. And she got a good look at my legs last week as she was coming out of the building. I hadn't seen her for about 3 months. I thought, again, in keeping with one of the two other neighbours that I've seen during this lockdown, just in the last couple of weeks, I felt it was poor social distancing on her part, though, to be fair, she's quite a short person. And she was taken aback by both the shorts and the mullet. I could see that. I saw the shock register on her face. It's a narrow curb on this side of the road. The pavement opposite is much wider. And, I was so tired after the run, at the same time pleased that I'd got it out of the way. And in this instance, I wasn't much of a gentleman. Normally, I give women the inside of the pavement. Might be unfashionable nowadays, I don't know. But hey, unfashionable hairstyle, unfashionable chivalry, maybe. I don't know. I still do it, except I didn't do it in this instance. I think I was just too tired. She didn't step onto the road as I took the inside of the pavement. And I just simply raised my hand to gesture a tired hello, and she hurried past. I didn't look back as she went past. Maybe she, glanced back, take another look at the legs. I don't know, whatever she thought of the legs. After getting back, doing my post-run warm down indoors and trying not to think of the look I'd picked up on from the neighbour. And I don't think I mentioned this last week, but I'd got into the shower and I'd taken some new shower gel in with me that my sibling had sent over from the Gulf when the hoarders had cleaned out supplies of pretty much everything here in the UK early on during the lockdown. And I was showering with a different shower gel. And after a minute or two, I was thinking, this is smelling a bit more chemical than I'm used to, really. And I continued. I didn't think much of it. I was rubbing the gel into the left armpit. OCD's ahoy, always wash the left armpit first. And then I thought, okay, there's something really going on with this shower gel. This is a strange smell. I took a look at it, and it was hand gel, but presented in the usual shower gel container. Normally hand gel comes in a pump, doesn't it? Hand wash. And I had to step out of the shower, I had to dry myself, a quarter of the body had been hand gelled, and I had to go and search for some backup shower gel, which I had, because of the OCDs, I tend to buy 2 of everything. And it reminded me of the summer of 85, or it might have been 87 in Spain, when I was using some hair lighting product mistakenly as shampoo every day after coming back from the beach on the holiday. And I returned to London sporting a very fair head of hair. I was like the blonde version of Elvis in Kissing Cousins. And it reminded me a bit of that. But at least I clocked on fairly quickly by my standards that I was trying to shower with some hand gel. So basically today, it's been a day where I felt very unmotivated. And I even thought a few hours ago, I had a moment where I thought, I just feel so tired, I feel so lethargic, maybe I should just record this episode today as live, which would mean, I'm not able to stream it live, but I could just put the show out tonight, upload it to all the platform, all the podcast providers, and just rest. I could be in bed now watching Mayans. I've got 2 episodes left of that. It's rubbish, but it's good rubbish, as I said on the bonus episode over the weekend. I think Sunday nights are something that I need to address. Sunday nights, it's almost the highlight of the week, and it has been for a few years now, listening to Howard Hughes' Unexplained show. And, as I've said before, I'm not one into conspiracy theories and UFOs and all that, but I just love that show. I really love that show, and I have to listen if I can. I have to listen live. I think there's only 1 or 2 Sunday nights in the last 4 years where I've been out. And I remember the last instance was, I think, last summer. And I actually travelled to this bar with a little radio on me. And I made sure that I left. No, it was a play. It was one of my plays were on. Yeah, this was September or October. And I had my little radio with me. And as soon as the night had finished, rather than network with performers and other writers, I made good my escape and I jumped on a bus in Holborn and I started listening to the radio that I brought with me, and I listened to Howard Hughes live on the bus. Incidentally, that theatre now, the Chapel House Theatre, that's now no longer running this particular night. So this is a concern as a writer. The theatre stuff was looking like a real outlet for me, and now again this lockdown is really making it difficult for creators. So that's one avenue closed down. So it just means you've got to put your thinking hat on and try and think of new ways to create content, new ways to try and survive this. So that's the situation today. And I think I did okay today, to be fair. Yes, I felt lethargic, but I think part of that is down to staying up really late for the radio show, but I was proactive, chased up the Housing Association guy who was dealing with the leaking roof, which has been going on for so many years now. The guy was trying to come on Thursday, and I've been isolating alone for 11 weeks now. I've not had to do any social distancing outdoors with people that I know or people that I've had to meet up with, because I've not met up with anyone. The only interaction I've had has been with a newsagent, like small talk, and the guy on Sundays doesn't like small talk but now does small talk. So, there was the brief social distancing with the neighbour a couple of weeks ago, but I've not really had to do that and engage with people. I've had to do it outdoors, going to the shops, running through the park, but not one-on-one with people, and certainly not in the flat. The guy sensed my insecurity about this, so we put back his visit. We put it back to the end of the month. He did say that he'd come wearing a mask and he could bring me a mask as well. I'm sitting on about 30 masks. And also, if he's bringing me a mask, which, was a kind offer, but here's the flaw, even if he wrapped that mask, he's handing me the mask in the wrapping. He'll still have touched the wrapping, whether it's the mask or the wrapping. He'll have had his hands on it. So it kind of defeats the point. But I am trying to work out, I've got about, 15, 16 days to work out a system for social distancing with this guy, because the hallway is pretty tight leading to the study at the back of the flat, which is where the leak is. But I'm pleased that he's not coming tomorrow. I think that would have really ruined tonight's show for me. Actually, you're thinking, well, can it ruin it anymore? He's just been moaning for the last 30 minutes. It's 10:30 now, UK time. I'm going to go for the 24-hour clock. It is 22:30 hours. You're listening to Daniel Ruiz Tizon is available, episode 240 live. Sweating the small stuff every Monday night on Ramble FM. You can support this show at patreon.com/DRT available. It's just $7 a month, a single tier of support. I've kept it simple, especially more so seeing as I'm so bad with numbers. For just $7 a month, you get an extra show every week. Every Thursday, you get an extra show. And you get, you get podcasts. If you're a big podcast listener, you'll know now that you will get podcasts that begin every show by welcoming their latest patrons on board, and they start reeling off all these names. And I'm going to do that now, because I listen to these shows and they're saying, and this guy, thank you for this guy, thank you for that girl, thank you for this guy, thank you for this boy, thank you for that girl, thank you for that woman, blah, 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 and thank you to so-and-so, and your support means the world to me. Tonight I'm going to say, Baxmatic, thank you for your support. And that's it. That's the new patron. That's almost a soundbite, really. I swear, honestly, I was awake half the night last night, and I kid you not, I was awake for half the night last night when I finally tried to get to sleep, just wondering how I can come up with some commercial podcast that will bring in the patrons. I don't know, some true crime meets mystery meets Peter Crouch podcast type thing. And I'd have no problem starting another show if it was going to be successful, to run alongside this show. I think, and I was given this some consideration today as well, I think I probably need to have my songs from the Big Chair moment. It's not a Tears for Fears album I particularly like. It was a successful crack at breaking the States. It made them the biggest band in the world in 1985, but musically it didn't really do much for me. I'm not a big pure pop fan, and there was a lot of that on there, though there were one or two tracks that hinted at a very interesting direction to come when they finally got their act together 4 years later. But I think I've been going down the Caesar Love route for a tiny audience for the last 10 years, and I've just got to, I think maybe I need that big songs from the Big Chair moment, and I've got to work out how to do it. How am I going to do it? There are so many football podcasts, there are so many true crime podcasts, so many mystery podcasts. What's left? What is out there? What genre hasn't been done? And I'm not short of ideas, but they weren't necessarily ideas that I wanted to make independently, just because they'd be quite difficult. So I just need to get my thinking cap on. Maybe it's a positive that I'm thinking in this way. I think maybe it's a positive. Do please also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. It's quite simple. It increases the show's visibility on Apple Podcasts, helps the show grow an audience, and every show, even the independents, we want to be a bit bigger than we are. So those of you who've done that over the years, that is much appreciated. 34 minutes past 10 now. I'm going to leave this next item. I think I'll leave that for the Patreon show. There's the voice going again. My uncle, I owe him an apology. My 80-year-old uncle, I think I said on the Patreon episode last week, what was that, 239, my aunt said that my uncle had heard that the dentists are reopening now, and I was thinking, this guy, where does he get his information from? I haven't read this, I haven't heard this, what's he talking about? This is the guy, as I said, who every May or June right up until the day of the final, he's saying that ITV is still showing the Champions League final, and you have to explain to him that it's actually going to be on YouTube, and that's his only chance of watching it. And as he doesn't have Wi-Fi, he's not going to be able to watch it. Though that might change this year. It has taken a pandemic, of course, to leave the BBC poised to show their first Premier League games now, live Premier League games, and their first top flight games in, I think, 32 years. So you never know, maybe ITV will show the Champions League final this year, whenever it is. But so I owe my uncle an apology. I had an email from my dentist just yesterday, his newsletter, and he was saying, though it's going to be a while before most patients get seen, and that we will be able to get seen at some point. So me and the chip tooth will be looking to go there at some point later this summer. It's not urgent. He said he's going to prioritise the people that had appointments that had to be cancelled during the lockdown, or people that were trying to get emergency appointments. He's also said in the newsletter, hidden right at the bottom, that because of all the PPE stuff he's had to buy, he's going to put his prices up. Personally, I'm not sure that was even possible. I've been going there, since 2013, and maybe there was a pandemic back then, because between renting and going to the dentist, I've paid a fortune to landlords and dentists in the last 10 years. They are, of course, also talking about cafes and restaurants, and I think even pubs now. I've read today about beer gardens being able to reopen maybe from, I think, the 22nd of June, and I'm not sure that I would risk that with the cafe, basically because the alfresco area in the cafe is going to be full of smokers, and the culture there is not enlightened enough to have a no smoking section outdoors. Maybe they would change that because they would know that not all their clients smoke. I'd say the overwhelming number do, because it is just a Mediterranean thing. They do love the tobacco. So I think it's going to be a while before I'm in there. Maybe I would go early morning, maybe join the school mums. I don't know. I'd like to, just from the point of view that I would like to be able to support it if it survives, I'd like to be able to support the cafe as early as possible. I think all those little lattes that you buy and toast, might make a tiny bit of difference. No doubt that they will raise their prices as well. Also, things like the custard tart deliveries, will those shops have survived? I think they're based in West London, Notting Hill, Portobello area. Will those places survive? Will we note missing pastries when these types of cafes, these Mediterranean cafes, reopen? Moving on to some show correspondence now. Still quite a bit to go through. Looking at my notes here, I have to start cutting some stuff out, or I'm going to be here all night. Still nothing on the Twitter. I think if there is reincarnation, then I think before I was sent down to Earth to live this particular life, maybe whoever was sending me back to Earth said, okay, the theme of this life for this guy, it's going to be humiliation. One humiliation after another. And this might be the latest one. Surely there's got to be a live listener out there. This is appalling. Show correspondence now from Minty Mat, the king of the Shataf and my dream lunch partner this week. Matt tweeted in response to last week's visit to South London's most aggressive shop assistants, the Lidl's Brixton Pistons, and Henry, one of their team, being reported. Matt tweeted, tremendous little Brixton Pistons v customers match this week. Clear hashtag customers win. I'm not convinced Henry will bounce back from this. LBP hashtag playing their most attacking player on shelves was a tactical error. Hopefully he'll be customer facing next week. I don't think Henry seemed too concerned last week. He seemed quite mild-mannered too in comparison to the other Pistons. But interesting analysis there from Matt. I had other errands to run on Friday, which actually gave me an excuse to avoid the Pistons, and instead I went to my usual Stockwell Lidl's. There was a beggar out there in the car park, posh white guy, samurai knot, middle class guy, but dressed really rough, a bit like Withnail, and he had a very distinctive movement, great upright posture, but he just seemed as high as a kite. And he was closing down the social distancing spacing in that external queue, like Klopp's Liverpool at the peak of their pressing game. So the external queue last Friday outside the Stockwell Littles was more fraught than the one that you get in Brixton. But inside, much calmer, more sedate, far less volatile in there. It was good to be back on home turf. It may be I need to find another day other than Friday afternoons to shop, though, because it has got me dreading Fridays right now. You know, it's so much harder doing this shopping, carrying it all back rather than busting it back and having a book to read on the bus. I'd been to Sainsbury's the day before. I hadn't been able to find the Neighbours Radio Times there, unusually, because I can normally find it there. And, it's one thing not being able to find her It's Not Okay magazine there in Sainsbury's. I know that I'm not going to find that in Sainsbury's on a Thursday. And catching my breath there. My throat is really dry. There's no point drinking that sparkling water. So I couldn't find It's Not Okay magazine. I expected that. But this time I couldn't find the Radio Times. It meant that I had to take my Sainsbury's shopping, walk onto the Tesco garage and get both mags there for her. You can't use cash in that garage, though. That's the thing. So the idea of buying, still trying to click on this mouse and it's just not working. The idea of buying It's Not Okay magazine with my bank card, I think even the debit card is thinking, what on earth has happened to this guy's life? What on earth is he buying? Meantime, priority on Thursday in Sainsbury's was given over to clingfilm. Now, I've been using Lidl's clingfilm for the last few months, and I don't know how that stuff makes it out of the factory. Now, often with cheaper items, there is a knack to using them. It's never a good sign, but if you can nail the knack, you get by, you get used to it, and you don't really need to go back to buying the pricier stuff, even if you reach a point in your life where you're earning better and you can get back to Waitrose or wherever it was that you were shopping, before the crash. But there is no knack, as far as I can see, with a little cling film. Not once, okay? Not once. And all the times I've used that in the last few months, has it been straightforward. And, being on my own these days, I thought I can get away with this because, yes, I know it's frugal. It's tight, that's the same thing, but I know when I'm using it, I know that I've been tight in buying this, but no one else is seeing that. It's just me and this pointless thing that I've wasted money on. I could have taken a hit for £2 on buying the better stuff, and I wouldn't be having the problems that I have covering any food that needs to go in the fridge. And I just had enough of it. I'd had a few months of it. I thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this. So I bought the Sainsbury's cling film, and of course it's much easier to use. When this lockdown is over, if they can be persuaded to remove their shoes indoors, I'd maybe, perhaps after getting the roofing guy out of the way, maybe I'll bring the Lidl and Sainsbury's guys, or the people responsible for designing their specific cling films. I'll bring them over to the flat with their cling films, their particular cling films, and I just want to be able to prove to the little guy or woman just how difficult their cling film is in comparison to the Sainsbury's one. I'd stick the kettle on and I'd just give them the floor so they can attempt to justify rolling that particular product out. I don't like the whole you get what you pay for thing. If something doesn't work, no matter how much of a saving you might be making, if it doesn't work, what is the point in selling it? Even if you've paid whatever it is, £1 for it, it should work. At least the Kodak batteries in Poundland. Yes, you get 5 or 6 sometimes for £1, but at least they work. Like a mayfly for about a day. Is it a mayfly that only lives for a day? I don't know. If I was going to use that example, maybe I should have checked online to see if it is the mayfly that just survives for 24 hours. I'm glad I found it in me, though, to bite the bullet. I feel like it shows some progress on my part that I just willingly paid the extra money for the Sainsbury's cling film when there's still so much of the little cling film roll left. And it tells me that there is still some fight left in me. It tells me that there is still some pride left in me. And I just need to find that Songs from the Big Chair podcast moment. Then I'll be able to buy as much clingfilm from Sainsbury's as I want. I'm not throwing out the little clingfilm though. Still there, still in the kitchen. I think it's a good idea to leave it there as a reminder of just how far I fell. Now let's try and wrap this show up. 45 minutes now, 46 minutes it's been going on. I think I'm just talking to myself tonight. Hopefully you guys will be downloading this overnight. Okay, where's my receipt? Here's my receipt for this week. Let's give you the points. I bought my usual pizza. Those you might have heard if you heard Saturday's free to all bonus episode on Patron, on the Patron page. I skipped the thin and crispy chicken pizza even though I bought it. I went down the little Cajun chicken pizza route with disastrous results. I just thought if I'd left it too late to stick the Sainsbury pizza in. I wanted to eat before 1900 hours. It was a disastrous decision. Check out that bonus episode for details on the calzone conversion. Bought another coffee refill, and I think I'm on about 13 coffees at the moment tonight. I've got one more after this while I do the topping and tailing, adding the intro theme tune and the outro theme tune that right now I can't use on Ramble FM. So I'll have one more coffee and that's about it. Sometimes late at night I can feel the coffee inside me. I can feel it's left me hyper, and I start thinking I've got to get in front of this habit. This is increasingly unhealthy. Last night, Sunday night, so I could stay up for the Howard Hughes show that I mentioned earlier. I made myself a last coffee just before midnight. And of course, then, that then meant that I was up for quite a while after his show. While I was listening to his show, as I normally do, I had the iPad on, and I spent 3 solid hours, I kid you not, I spent 3 solid hours last night listening to Howard Hughes, trawling through dermoscopy images and websites. I found one website which was talking about why the language for dermatology has to be so specific, why they might use 20 words where maybe 3 or 4 you think might do. And this website was explaining that if they didn't write in this way, that skin specialists wouldn't really have a proper idea of what a lesion might be. And of course, skin lesions can and often are dangerous and need to be very specific. Skin atrophy, that's a particular favorite of mine. I just like that kind of cigarette paper skin thing when the skin is starting to lose its fat as you get older. You can get that, I think they call it the cigarette paper surface. You stretch it and it's just really weird looking, and I love seeing those pictures. So that's a particular favourite of mine, as alongside a speckled lentiginous nevus, which is a macule with loads of little speckled nevuses on them. I really missed my calling, I think. I should have had a sideline. That should have been my sideline. And if I'd gone to university, maybe that's what I would have studied, though I think this is something that's maybe only exploded in the last 10 years with the availability of loupes, of which I have 3 now, that, I can, if I see something on my skin or whatever, I can just rub a bit of Vaseline on there and I just get that loupe and I can look at it, and it is quite incredible. If I ever see my aunt again, she's got quite a few lentines. I'd just love to get a loupe on her hand, and also, maybe she'd want to have a look at her hand and the state of her hands now that she's always going on about. I think that would be a nice thing for both of us. I think she's quite enthusiastic about the idea. I have run it past her before. The previous week, the last hour of the Unexplained, that had been spent zooming in on images of Prison Break's lead actor, Wentworth Miller, simply because I think he has the strangest widow's peak I've ever seen. Now, he's a good-looking guy. He's had that great crop in Prison Break. He may still have it now. It's a great haircut. I think it's the ultimate haircut for a guy. But they do say if you have straight hair like I do, that when you shave your hair off, it starts growing spiky. That's the big downside of that haircut. I've had it a few times, and that's the downside. Unless you're going to keep shaving it, it's not a great haircut. If you've got straight hair, it's better suited. It grows out better if you've got kind of curly hair. So I've never seen him with anything other than a crop. But he has that very strange widow's peak. It is curiously tiny, but it is super pointed, literally just stubble. And by zooming in on it, okay, on the iPad, I could see just how small but noticeable it really was. And if you're listening to this, maybe do that. Maybe just do Wentworth Miller, bang that into DuckDuckGo. Don't use Google. You know, you don't need to be tracked. Wentworth Miller, look at his hair, zoom in on it, and have a look at how minuscule that widow's peak is. It's just a really, really sharp point. Have a look at how little stubble there is in that very sharp point that appears, that is noticeable in every single picture of him. And isn't it a weird world that we can now zoom in, if inclined, we can now zoom in on the skulls of a performer on our devices while listening to a live radio show. Let's get back to the nectar points anyway. Sainsbury's. Brought Sainsbury's own interdental brushes. There's another error there. Sunday Sainsbury's, that can, I think it'll be overshadowed by that weird noise I made about 20 minutes ago. So I bought some interdental brushes, Sainsbury's own, orange, now £2.25. That's they've gone up 25p. The orange interdental brush, that is the spine of my interdental brush family. I'd gone in with a balance of 455 points last week. This week, of course, last week, of course, with no Radio Times in the store, I missed out on 3 nectar points, but I did still accrue 15 points, came out of there on 470, worth £2.35. It's a bit like this show, it's a slow journey. You know, I'm still a bit short of that 500 mark, that magical 500 mark, but I've just got to keep going. And I'm determined to keep going. On my way to a Sainsbury's, I'd called the kid back. I had a couple of missed calls from the now 33-year-old kid still living at home. Actually owns his house now with his brother, and his parents are now tenants or lodgers, I think. That's how that's working. I've been better the last week about calling people back if they've called me, and it's done me some good to hear things when I've spoken to people, you know, talking about the difficulty of this isolating on my own, because it does take a toll. It really does. I'm someone, you know, I'm okay in my own company, but this is proving difficult. I have to say, it's proven difficult now. And I knew, though, that if I got into this with the kid, the starting point when I called him back was he was very cheesed off that I'd not returned a couple of his calls over the last few weeks. And I just thought, well, maybe I can talk to him about this. Maybe he's matured now, he's 33. Maybe I can tell him how I'm feeling, why I didn't get back to him, because I don't want to be hearing myself, you know, talking in such a way. It can't be, you know, fun for people to be hearing this stuff. I can save it for the listeners. And thought, yeah, maybe he's ready for this. Maybe this time it won't go over his head. Now, he's a nice guy. He's a good friend. A formidable handshake. Very sad now. He's actually very sad that the handshake is practically dead now, because he did work on his handshake for a number of years, and it became one of the best handshakes I've known in recent years now. So, you know, he's a nice guy, a good friend, great handshake, as I've said. But if you were to jump off a bridge, this is not a guy who is going to talk you down. He might walk past you on the bridge. He might stop for a minute or two. He's not going to be able to get his head around why you're on that bridge. And at some point, very quickly, he's going to get the conversation back round to him. He's going to ask you if you can smell his latest expensive scent, or if you've noticed a change in his physique. That's how the kid works. And sure enough, we ended up talking about what not being able to go to the gym has done to him. And he said to me, Daniel, the gym to me is what running is to you. Not quite, I said, reminding him that I don't really enjoy the running. I do it because I know it's good for me. And that is a good reason to keep doing it. He does the gym because he wants to show off those abs and that top-heavy frame. Anyway, he kept me from joining the external queue at the Sainsbury's because he wanted to break down how his body is looking right now. That was the final 15 minutes of the phone call. And I just thought, yeah, this guy might be 33, almost 33, but it is pointless telling him how I might be feeling. He's not ready for these kinds of conversations. Maybe he'll never be. Have your listeners been asking about me? He asked at least twice during the call. In a way, I would say that I was pleased that he remains as vain as ever, because the world has changed. But at least talking to him, I could see that he was still as narcissistic as ever. And in a way, I don't know, I took something from that. Not everything has changed. The kid certainly hasn't changed. And that is it. As usual, on a Monday night, I say at this point, if you've got any feedback on the show, any technical feedback for me to take to Ramble, do drop me an email or a DM on Twitter. It is all useful for them and for me. Don't forget, as I said earlier, I think you can have a read of the article I wrote for medium.com/ I think at DRT available. If you just put DRT available, you'll find me on there. You'll find the piece on podcasting and radio on there. And send me any feedback on the show and I can get that to the Ramble guys. And that is the show this week. Patreon supporters, if you've missed the start of this live episode, it's going to be available shortly tonight at patreon.com/ DRT available. And it will be available to regular listeners from early tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, also on Thursday, Patreon listeners will get their weekly bonus episode with episode 241. Do remember, if you want to join them, it is patreon.com/ DRT available. Thank you guys for listening. If you're not joining us on Thursday, I'm back next Monday, 10 p.m. UK time on Ramble FM. Get those shoulders back. Keep on walking towards the sun. Keep washing those hands. I'm Daniel Ruiz Tizon, and this week I have been available. Stay safe.